Okay, the clock is ticking. Let's see here. So we have just a few more minutes before lunch, so I'm back with one more story for you. And this one's about rural development and building partnerships. So we've been talking a lot about like big partnerships, and I want to just tell you a story about a really small and specific partnership from our work. So when we talk at the Civic Standard about growing a common culture, that's kind of the undercurrent message of all the events we put on. All of these shows and these dances, these concerts, these community meals, everything is trying to kind of weave this fabric back together. We say we're making excuses to get together, but what we don't say is that we're trying to mend the ever-widening chasms between us. Holly talked a little bit about that at the beginning of her remarks, and it's true. There are these unspoken kind of rifts that grow, and they're multi-directional. They're not just between the generations or from here and from away. They're political. They're in every direction. So it's a really grand undertaking to try to mend those through these small events and these ongoing, recurring get-togethers. But we do it by collaborating, not just with the individuals, but the venues that we use. We put a lot of effort and meaning into those relationships. So I'm going to tell you one story about one of our partners who we work with a lot in the community, and that's American Legion Post Number 7, which is in Hardwick. It's a Legion Hall that is in an old grocery store just up the street from where our headquarters is. We first approached the Legion about a year and a half ago because we had the idea to show an opera, like on the big screen from the San Francisco Opera, a new production of Traviata. And we wanted to show that, and we thought it would be fun to get together and invite people in town to come and watch it and all get dressed up and eat spaghetti and watch an opera. And then we thought, where can we do that? Well, there's not a lot of venues in our town, and there's very few that have a big enough space to show a movie and also have a kitchen. And the Legion is one of those. So it really was born from necessity. So we approached them, and I don't know if you've ever walked into a Legion bar before as not a member of the bar and not having grown up going to that bar, but it's not so easy. It's a little terrifying. And we walked in not knowing most of the people in there, not having a lot of context for who we were and where we were coming from, and we just asked if this would be possible to show our opera there and cook spaghetti in the kitchen. And there was like a feeling of an eye roll in the room. I don't know if there actually was an eye roll, but they were polite, and what could they say? People can rent the hall. There's no problem. It costs $200 to rent the hall. There's a $50 kitchen fee. We knew we were not going to make this money back, but it seemed like a very smart investment in a different way. And so we did it, and people really did get dressed up, put on tuxedos and muck boots and, gloves up to the elbow, and we watched the opera together, and it was great, and we ate spaghetti, and it was great. And the guys at the Legion were sort of mystified and humored by it, but they saw that people came, and so they were intrigued by that. So then the next thing that happened was we decided to do the Murder Mystery Dinner Theater show. If you were here yesterday, you saw a piece of that performance. And so once again, we needed that space, a theater and a kitchen. And so once again, we approached them. And we said we'd like to reserve it for a few nights. And they kind of scoffed at us, like, you think you're going to need to do it more than one time? You think that many people are going to want to come and see your show? And I said, I am certain that we will sell out as many shows as we do. So then I was stuck with that confidence, and they were stuck with this extreme doubt that they had about our success. So we did the show. We sold out in like 30 hours. We sold out every ticket, weeks in advance. So at that point, something shifted. They saw what we were talking about. We did the show. They actually prepared the food for that show. So it was two of the friends from the Legion, the bar manager, the commander of the Suns, who also does a lot of the cooking there, And they were the ones who really took on a lot of the organizing from the Legion side. So it was a true collaboration in that sense. And then we did that in the spring. The flood happened in the summer. We worked with them a lot. There were lots of Legion guys who got involved in some of the flood response that we were doing. We decided to do the show again in the fall. And so we went back to them, and again, there was a little bit of eye rolling, but this time it flowed a little more easily, and we did the collaboration once again. There were a lot of conversations in the lead up to both of these shows about the food. But when we were talking about the food, we weren't really talking about the food. We were talking about our political beliefs, our idea of what the community is and who is in the community and who needs what. So they at first said, we'll make you stuffed pork rolls. Is that right? Stuffed pork rolls. And we were like, okay, that's a little strange, but I guess that could work. But they thought we wanted this the fanciest thing they could think of. And in the end, after a lot of intense conversations, we came to, once again, spaghetti. Spaghetti is always the answer, in case you're wondering. You can save yourself a lot of time. And you know, it was simple. I mean, the answer was that it was simple and that we both had misunderstandings about what the other one thought would be the right thing. So this is the Legion, and that is the line of people waiting to get into the murder mystery show. It went around the block. And you know, since then, we've done quite a number of events there. We hold our honky-tonk dances there, karaoke nights. We've put concerts in there. We've worked with the town on like flood response meals that we've held there. So it's become a partnership that's beyond just like a venue rental, because they end up almost every single time getting involved in some way, and it gets trickier and stickier to figure out how to pay the rent. So, you know, they'll sort of help advertise, or we'll put an event after one of their community meals, and then it's kind of like, well, are we renting this space or are we working with you? And that messiness, which is not always easy or pleasant to sort out, it is what feels like the true partnership to us. So a couple months ago, some folks in Maine, in Belfast, Maine, reached out to us, and they had been following the story of the Civic Standard all along. And they are like podcast people and community organizers, and they wanted to figure out how to approach the American Legion Hall in Belfast. And so they reached out to us and said, we're thinking about putting on a community meal, and we want to do it at the Legion because we think it'll bring all the different kinds of people together. Our people, the sort of liberal, progressive, podcast, nonprofit world, and the Legion folks who go there every Friday night and play pool, and like these two groups don't meet each other. So we're wondering if you guys, the Civic Standard, would come for this community meal and sort of show us how it's done, which is a funny idea because we have no idea what we're doing and we're just sort of feeling our way through all of this. But we thought, well, this is an interesting experiment to see what it looks like somewhere else without all this context that we've built here. And they said that one of their main worries was that the people at the Legion really wanted to have chop suey at the community supper. And there's an older lady who always makes chop suey for some particular meal that they have there. And they were both kind of like, I don't know, chop suey? So what we took away from that conversation was that fear of the chop suey is sort of at the center of what we're working against all the time. The unwillingness to try it, the fear that other people in maybe your world aren't gonna like it, and that you're bringing these two things together, is missing the point that there's somebody in that world, in that Legion, for whom the chop suey is her pride, and there's a lot of people in that community who come out for that meal. And so it's actually this amazingly rich opportunity to just eat the same thing together, this incredibly simple act that requires only that you take a leap of trying something that you think maybe you won't like. So we went to Maine, and we actually brought Ashton and Phil from the Legion with us. So the bar manager and the commander of the Sons of the Legion, and myself, and my partner at the Civic, Tara Reese. The four of us drove to Maine in 2 separate cars. And we stayed in a motel for a night, in 2 separate rooms, and we attended the Legion Community Supper in Belfast, Maine. And we all talked afterwards. They had us, oh, there's the Legion in a dance. They had us over there at the bar, and we enjoyed being in a different Legion bar and seeing what that's like. That's Phil and Ashton. And they had us for a coffee hour the next morning to talk about community building. And the four of us sat and sort of recounted what this show was like for all of us. And it was really fascinating to be brought in as these kinds of experts on something that we are all continuing to figure out, because it's not over. We successfully got away with that show. We figured that out. But every week and every month and every year, we're sort of experimenting and pushing the envelope a little further, and we don't know how it's gonna unfold. So I'm gonna end by just showing you this, our greatest award. I thought when I was a kid that I wanted to win an Oscar, but it turned out that I actually just wanted to win this award, which is given to us by the Legion after the first production. So there's Ashton in the kitchen with Nick, who played the developer in the show. He dies after the first scene. So Nick went to the kitchen and helped to plate and clean up afterwards with Ashton. And then after the show ended, Ashton and Phil gave us this award, which has this burned pot holder, a poster from our show, and this letter, which they wrote to us, which I'll read to you now. The American Legion Post Number 7 is pleased to present this pot holder to the Civic Standard as a symbol of our unwavering commitment to the pursuit of nutritional equity to all the attendees of Develop to Death, the first Civic Standard theatrical production. It was while preparing gluten-free rotini that a composite pot handle caught fire and sent smoke and unpleasant electrical fire odors into the theater. This pot holder proudly and bravely accepted its fate and made the ultimate sacrifice to safely remove the pot from the stove. This pot holder is now recognized as a culinary hero of sorts. Let the charred, blackened threads of this textile be an ever-present reminder of not only its selfless performance that fateful night, but also of both the Civic Standard and the American Legion Post Number 7's tireless dedication to culinary inclusivity at all costs. Secondly, we would like to congratulate Rose Friedman and Tara Reese for the wild success of this first production. While the audience and most of the cast enjoyed pasta, the two individuals below, Phil Mercier and Ashton Allen, satiated their hunger pangs with 4 giant helpings of perfectly prepared crow. Our point was not to prove them wrong, but it was a mutually humbling experience and a very human experience. And that friendship building, which is so messy, is what we're talking about when we talk about cultural exchange. It's about misconceptions, art, unconscious biases, and just plain friendship. And when we talk about cultural organizing, we're including all those existing, already there cultures, the chop suey. So what's being developed in rural development? Who is it for? What is already there? What needs to be resurrected and what needs to be made anew? Those are the questions we're asking ourselves in Hardwick. So now it's lunchtime. I'm gonna say a couple of things before I let you go. There's 2 lunch and learn sessions that are gonna be happening right now, starting at 12:15, from 12:15 to 1:15. So you can get your lunch out there and then you can head in. There's 2 choices. The first one will be hosted by Kevin Chu of the Vermont Futures Project, and Matt Dunn from the Center on Rural Innovation, and we'll explore demographics, housing, and the future of our rural communities. The second Lunch and Learn will be led by representatives from the Center for Global Resilience and Security, and we'll be discussing the role of universities in building resilience to disasters like flooding. Both of these Lunch and Learn sessions will be held down the hall in the Levac Ballroom. And then make sure you come back by 1:20, and there will be the award ceremony for the 2024 Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships Distinguished Community Engagement Award. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your lunch.